And let us get back into the 21st chapter of the second book of A Tale of Two Cities. The name of the chapter is Echoing Footsteps. The name of the book is The Golden Thread. Mr. Lorry, who is the man from Tellson's Bank, and Charles Darnay, the wife of our Golden Thread, Lucy, who is now Lucy Darnay, have had 2 children since we last saw them. It's been 9 years. One of them has died, but one of them is still alive, very sweet girl, and things are getting bad in Paris, which Mr. Lorry is now explaining to Mr. Darnay. "I know that, to be sure," assented Mr. Lorry, trying to persuade himself that his sweet temper was soured, and that he grumbled, "But I am determined to be peevish about my long day's botheration. Where is Manette?" "Here he is," said the doctor, entering the dark room at the moment. "I am quite glad you are at home, for these hurries and forebodings by which I have been surrounded all day long have made me nervous without reason. Are you not going out, I hope?" "No, I am going to play backgammon with you, if you like," said the doctor. "I don't think I do like, if I may speak my mind. I am not fit to be pitted against you tonight. Is the tea-board still there, Lucy? I can't see." "Of course, it has been kept for you." "Thank you, my dear. The precious child is safe in bed, and sleeping soundly." "That's right, all safe and well. I don't know why anything should be otherwise than safe and well here, thank God. But I have been so put out all day, and I am not as young as I was. My tea, my dear, thank ye. Now, come and take your place in the circle, and let us sit quiet, and hear the echoes about which you have your theory." "Not a theory, it was a fancy." "A fancy, then, my pet," said Mr. Lorry, patting her head. "They are very numerous and loud, though, are they not? Only hear them." Headlong, mad, and dangerous footsteps to force their way into anybody's life, footsteps not easily made clean again if once stained red, and footsteps raging in St. Antoine far off as the little circle sat in the dark London window. St. Antoine had been that morning, a vast, dusky mass of scarecrows heaving to and fro, with frequent gleams of light above the billowy heads, where steel blades and bayonets shone in the sun. A tremendous roar arose from the throat of St. Antoine, and a forest of naked arms struggled in the air like shriveled branches of trees in a winter wind, all the fingers convulsively clutching at every weapon or semblance of a weapon that was thrown up from the depths below, no matter how far off. Who gave them out? Whence they last came? Where they began? Through what agency they crookedly quivered and jerked, scores at a time, over the heads of the crowd, like a kind of lightning. No eye in the throng could have told, but muskets were being distributed. So were cartridges, powder and ball, bars of iron and wood, knives, axes, pikes, every weapon that distracted ingenuity and could discover or devise. People who could lay hold of nothing else set themselves with bleeding hands to force stones and bricks out of their places in the walls. Every pulse and heart in St. Antoine was on high fever strain and at high fever heat. Every living creature there held life as of no account, and was demented with a passionate readiness to sacrifice it. As a whirlpool of boiling waters has a center point, so all this raging circled round Defarge's wine shop, and every human drop in the cauldron had a tendency to be sucked toward the vortex where Defarge himself, already begrimed with gunpowder and sweat, issued orders, issued arms, thrust this man back, dragged this man forward, disarmed one to another, labored and strove in the thickest of the uproar. "Keep near me, Jacques III," cried Defarge. "And you, Jacques I and II, separate and put yourselves at the head of as many of these patriots as you can. Where is my wife?" Well, here to see me," said Madame, composed as ever, but not knitting today. Madame's resolute right hand was occupied with an axe in place of the usual softer implements, and in her girdle were a pistol and a cruel knife. Where do you go, my wife? I go, said Madame, with you at present. You shall see me at the head of women by and by. Come then, cried Defarge, in a resounding voice. Patriots and friends, we are ready. The Bastille! With a roar that sounded as if all the breath of France had been slapped into the detested word. The living sea rose, wave on wave, depth on depth, and overflowed the city to that point. Alarm bells ringing, drums beating, the sea raging and thundering. On its new beach, the attack began. Deep ditches, double drawbridge, massive stone walls, 8 great towers, cannon, muskets, fire and smoke. Through the fire and through the smoke, in the fire and in the smoke. For the sea cast him up against a cannon, and on the instant he became a cannoneer. Defarge of the wine-shop worked like a manful soldier 2 fierce hours. Deep ditch, single drawbridge, massive stone walls, 8 great towers, cannon muskets, fire and smoke. 1 drawbridge down. Work, comrades, work! Work, Jacques 1, work, Jacques 2, Jacques 1,000, Jacques 2,000, Jacques 25,000, in the name of all the angels, or the devils which you prefer, work! Thus Defarge of the wine-shop still at his gun, which had long grown hot. To me, women, cried Madame his wife. What? We can kill as well as the men when the place is taken? And to her, with a small thirsty cry, trooping women variously armed, but all armed alike in hunger and revenge. Cannon, muskets, fire and smoke, but still the deep ditch, the single drawbridge, the massive stone walls, and the 8 great towers. Slight displacements of the raging sea, made by the falling wounded, flashing weapons, blazing torches, smoking wagon-loads of wet straw, hard work at the neighboring barricades in all directions, shrieks, volleys, exertions, bravery without stint, boom, smash, and rattle, and the furious sounding of the living sea, but still the deep ditch, and the single drawbridge, and the massive stone walls, and the 8 great towers, and still Defarge of the wine-shop at his gun grown doubly hot by the service of 4 fierce hours. A white flag from within the fortress, and a parley, this dimly perceptible, though through the raging storm, nothing audible in it. Suddenly the sea rose immeasurably wider and higher, and swept Defarge of the wine-shop over the lowered drawbridge, past the massive stone outer walls, in among the 8 great towers surrounded. So resistless was the force of the ocean bearing him up, that even to draw his breath or turn his head was as impracticable as if he had been struggling in the surf of the South Sea, until he was landed in the outer courtyard of the Bastille. There, against an angle of the wall, he made a struggle to look about him. Jacques 3 was nearly at his side. Madame Defarge, still heading some of her women, was visible in the inner distance, and her knife was in her hand. Everywhere was tumult, exultation, deafening and maniacal bewilderment, astounding noise, yet furious dumb show. The prisoners, the records, the secret cells, the instrument of torture, the prisoners! For all these cries, the 10,000 incoherencies, the prisoners! Was the cry most taken up by the sea that rushed in, as if there were an eternity of people, as well as of time and space, when the foremost billows rolled past, bearing the prison officers with them, and threatening them with instant death if any second nook remained undisclosed. Defarge laid his strong hand on the breast of one of these men, a man with a grey beard, who had a lighted torch in his hand, separated him from the rest, and got him between himself and the wall. "Show me the North Tower," said Defarge. "Quick!" "I will faithfully," replied the man, "if you will come with me, but there is no one there." "What is the meaning of 105 North Tower?" asked Defarge. "Quick!" "The meaning, monsieur? Does it mean a captive, or a place of captivity, or do you mean that I shall strike you dead?" "Kill him," croaked Jacques 3, who had come close up. "Monsieur, it is a cell." "Show it to me." Pass this way, then. Jacques 3, with his usual craving on him, and evidently disappointed by the dialogue, taking a turn that did not seem to promise bloodshed, held by Defarge's arm as he held by the turnkey's. There, 3 heads had been close together during this brief discourse, and it had been as much as they could do to hear one another. Even then, so tremendous was the noise of the living ocean in its eruption into the fortress, and its inundation of the courts and the passages and staircases. All around outside, too, it beat the walls with a deep hoarse roar, from which occasionally some partial shouts of tumult broke and leaped into the air like spray. Through gloomy vaults, where the light of day had never shone, past hideous doors of dark dens and cages, down cavernous flights of steps, and again up steep rugged ascents of stone and brick, more like dry waterfalls than staircases, Defarge, the turnkey, and Jacques 3, linked hands and arm, went with all the speed they could make. Here and there, especially at first,